can we reorganize history? Because from what we have always been taught, the idea of time or chronology becomes so important. The relationship between identity and consciousness is also constantly shifting. And the same idea could morph and manifest differently with a change in place and time. Theory as an apparatus, rather than just looking at it with historical facts, can actually give structure and ease this appropriation of this time, which is so strongly bound with history. And these shifts can add meaning, and they can be absorbed into uh, uh, academics and as well as practice. I just like to give you an example here. We speak of St. Peter's when we actually speak of St. Peter's and the Villa Rotunda, the Villa Capra, when we actually speak about the Renaissance. Okay, so they are very strongly bound by a timeline that they come from, right? Very interesting to see how the idea of the dome, okay, if you don't see it with respect to whether it was the Renaissance, whether it was the architecture that was happening in Turkey by this very very important person, this very important architect to Turkey, Mimar Sinan, or whether it was the Gol Gumbaz, and to actually wrap it up, finally the Taj Mahal. Very interestingly, all these examples were built within 100 years. Whether you see, I'm going to quickly go back. 1547 was when St. Peter's Rome was built, and then the end was 1653. So almost in about 100 years. Other than just seeing the ideas of chronology, we do not actually see all these together ever. But it's very interesting to see how in 100 years, everywhere, almost all across the globe, at least in the most important architectural manifestations of in that 100 years, whether it was the Renaissance, whether it was Mimar Sinan in Turkey, whether it was Palladio again in Italy, whether it was the Gol Gumbaz, or whether it was the Taj Mahal, all of them were building the dome as being the most, or the dome, the most important idea, was being crafted and executed the best in these 100 years. Almost you'll begin to wonder whether Michelangelo, Palladio, Sinan, and the builders of and the Mughal builders at some point crossed paths. Was there any transfer of knowledge? Why was this idea of the dome so important in these 100 years? Was it a power struggle to establish the idea of Christianity over the rival religion of Islam? Then was it the idea of to continue the skyline, as in the case with Turkey? And what was the idea of proposing something as huge as the Gol Gumbaz and then the onion dome of the Taj Mahal? So other than looking at purely with respect to time, but if you see parallel histories, I think the idea that the shifting identity, which is purely style, can be seen as an extension of a consciousness, that there was something very important, that the dome represented to the builders of the 100 years that we just saw. I'm going to try and relook at the idea of the dome because I have started with it. The idea of transformation. Can history be equated to a dictionary where information is documented and ordered in chronology, or to an adopted structure? Whereas actually, if you see, what if we can actually organize it like a thesaurus? Okay, not like a dictionary, but like a thesaurus, which is a beautiful form according to me, as it organizes word in terms of meanings by natural order of the world. Okay, like how we are looking at domes here rather than the idea of chronology. And what it does is we are looking at the natural order of the world as giving meaning rather than organizing, rather than an arbitrary organizing principle. Like, why do I have to study the St. Peter's as under Renaissance and the Taj Mahal as under the Mughal? Can we not look at the idea of things of parallel timelines will become very important in the idea of how we are going to study, teach, learn history. Similarly, if you look at again the three most important triple domes in the history of the dome, Okay, so you have Florence Cathedral, you have St. Peter's, and you have the St. Paul's Cathedral in London by Sir Christopher Wren. Very interesting to see how the idea of, you building the largest dome to in the Florence Cathedral, to building the best proportioned dome in St. Peter's, Rome, to building the most functional, the most efficient dome, to see the shifting ideas or shifting priorities of these architects. And cut to 100 years after, more than 100 years after the last Sir Christopher Wren's dome, you have Norman Foster, who's saying, like, rethink the dome. Does it have to be a symbol of oppression and power? Can it actually be see-through? Can it actually be glass? Is it representative of power, or is it representative of a shared interest with the people? In his Reichstag dome, which he designed after the Reichstag was bombed in World War II. And then to take it to a completely new idea, you have Richard Rogers, who at the turn of the millennium said, what does the dome represent? Should it even represent power? Don't you think that has become ephemeral in today's times? So this was 20 years back, but just look at the idea of how the idea has shifted from the earliest dome that we know, the Pantheon, 43 meters in diameter, the Florence Cathedral, approximately the same diameter again, and then going with St. Peter's Dome. But then you have a marked difference when in St. Paul's, you see that it's just 30 meters. How it's not important to project that anymore, but how the idea of efficiency, how the idea of experience, what does it mean, rather than just power struggles, become important. So in this lens, I think history can be rethought of as the idea, the idea of classification of the world is our result to basically impose an order. But it is a necessary evil in the sense. It remains useful to root our ideas in time and space. But a constant awareness to organize the imposed order of classification, to look at it with respect to thematically, conceptually, I think would bring us closer and ensure a more fruitful and balanced exploration when it comes to how it becomes closely linked with the idea of academics and in practice. Another very interesting idea of not bringing the time at all together. Okay, the fact that these two examples are 400 years apart almost, right? The fact that in Mathematics of the Ideal Villa, someone called Colin Rowe compares the Palladian villa with Villa Stein, which is Corbusier's villa, and he actually finds using very unorthodox tools of interpretation, negating the relative ideas of time and context, to reveal a very interesting idea of what has remained the same from the past and what has changed. He very interestingly figured that the grid used by Palladio and the grid used by Corbusier is the same, but you can see the expression, how different they are. There is an error in the slide. I meant to put Villa Malcontetta, but I've however put Villa Rotunda. However, I think Palladio used the same proportion. So yeah, please forgive that mistake from my end. The last idea which I want to talk of is probably the most important. Even before COVID, it has become, even before formal learning, teaching or studying architecture, history has always been an integral part of the education of an architect through being an apprentice, that is. However, architecture in the past was mostly a subset of history. As today, however, completely turned tables. The prevalent that, now today, history has become a subset of architecture. We are given the option of whether we want to respond to it or whether we don't. And this happened mainly because of the modern movement. And, for example, the Bauhaus school did not even teach history as part of their syllabus. So significantly, the prevalent has become the alternate, that what was the rule of the day has become optional today, and the source has become the substitute. So you have the option of whether to respond to history or no, for example. And this actually brings us to the idea of history of the future, which will be defined by the end of the formal, according to me. The idea that content, medium and with respect to how is it going to be any different, is it's going to change with respect to the content, with respect to the medium, representation, and most importantly, the idea of sources. At this point, I'd like to actually show this particular project, which is the Louvre Abu Dhabi. So it was inaugurated in 2017. However, today, when a routine search on Google actually throws up the most recent idea rather than the most relevant idea. So when you search for Louvre Abu Dhabi today, you'll probably find the latest, but you will not find what was more meaningful or what is more meaningful to understanding the Louvre at Abu Dhabi. So today the importance of ideas, processes, and information is actually relegated to its immediate use. So what is the most recent rather than the most relevant? This reversal of chronologies, thanks to social media and the inherent structure of the internet that perpetrates, that shows us only what is only the latest rather than the most relevant. History, the nearer history in this case, that means the most recent one, is going to become very important to document, and because of which the ideas of how we understand has been completely changed. Okay, and the implications of this reversal emphasize a new kind of source, whether it was not magazines, books, or experience anymore, but the internet, which has become a surrogate with respect to source, with respect to reference, and a platform to clarify any sources or any issues of ownership and plagiarism. So it's not anything anymore about the autonomy of the idea, but rather than how the idea has been presented thematically. So this particular project was all over the internet much before it opened. That when people went there and you experience, you are literally searching for this highly sensual experience of this dome. Very interestingly, only part of the museum, if you can see that circle over there, is actually covered by this dome. You do not see this dome for most of the experience. Okay, and it's a release at the end suggestive of this huge dome, almost making us question whether this idea of projection is more important, or rather what is the most or what has remained important to architecture, the idea of experiential and existential focus. What does this dome mean? Okay, rather than having this huge amazing dome and the kind of sensual light that it filters in. Similarly, we can see it in this particular project. I think all of you agree that as architects, we have seen this. It feels like it's almost built in Delhi, right? It's almost ready. It's right there. But the fact that we've seen so much of it, the idea of the mystery, the idea of the reveal, the idea of the experience is not being spoken about, but everything other than that is becoming more and more important. I'd like to I'll be done in the next couple of minutes. And the last point that I want to discuss is the idea of at this crucial juncture, we have to start thinking about how are we actually consuming, whether it is not the idea, the autonomous idea anymore, but how it has been curated for us, whether it's through Dezeen or Brain Pickings or ArcDaily. We are being fed. Okay, we are being fed, not what was initially done or traditionally done through books, magazines, and actually visiting the space. Today, it's being fed to us as themes, structures, constructs, collaborations, and as ideas and concepts rather than the autonomous idea itself. And then when you look at it like this, the idea of authorship becomes very, very important, that the internet is becoming a source which actually the authorship is not anymore important, but how you construct or how do you curate these different themes is becoming more and more important. Another example is a series of rooms, which is an exploration into the imaginary of the housing archetype, the idea of how housing has changed. This particular website actually is a great example to show how new meanings in history by ordering the precedents in an imaginative manner. They are all housing archetypes. Okay, but it is the way you put it together that becomes that is giving it meaning, rather than the autonomy of, whether you're seeing the Villa Capra or whether you're seeing the Villa Stein or something as and something as recent at the same time, but you're looking at it as a thematic way. In conclusion, I'd like to say that it is necessary at this crucial juncture, such as our present, to come to terms with change, to redirect and accommodate to shifting practices. History cannot be seen only as chronology, but should be engaged with as a tool and platform, rather than a sacrosanct canon which cannot be touched or disturbed or reinterpreted. This engagement could actually speculate and interpret the role of history in architecture. Firstly, through the thematic connections of contemporaries, like we did with the idea of the domes, similar and parallel timelines and geographies. Secondly, to anticipate anomalies like that church of St. George in Ethiopia, which are not highlighted and represented as they resist the flow of evolutionary forces. In a sense, they are revolutionary, right? And hence they get excluded. Thirdly, to question the prevalent, whatever is happening, as in the case with the Louvre, and absorb in the course of evolution relevant, appropriate ideas. Fourthly, and most significantly, I think we have to start looking at history as a venture that mediates meaning, ethics, equity between its stakeholders and collective priorities. I think what I've tried to present here is to increase awareness, the different ways you can take away the burden of history and introspect, explore, and manifest these values, which will help us becoming more responsible consumers of history.